Hold up. Wait a minute. I wish you love, peace, and hair grease.
Love, peace, and hair grease, y'all.
Yeah, you know the one that's shooting straight from the hip.
This is Carla Renata, a.k.a. the Curvy Critic, and I shoot straight from the hip.
Yeah, you know the one that's shooting straight from the hip.
Hi, everybody. It's your girl, Carla Renata, a.k.a. the Curvy Film Critic. Welcome back to another live episode of the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. I am your host, Carla Renata. And if you are on YouTube, give me a big thumbs up to let me know you were here. Click that bell for notifications and subscribe. I got a lot of people here for you guys today, so I won't get into it too much and bore you with the details, darling. But what I will do is tell you that I had a fantabulous week full of interviews. I hope that you guys have had an opportunity to catch the stuff that I talked about last week which is on FX, MGM, Epics, and The Covenant with Jake Gyllenhaal. Anywho, and Mafia Mama. I forgot about Mafia Mama. So I didn't really do a lot this past week. I did a lot of junkets and a lot of interviews. But what I will tell you is that I was on the carpet, and I think I said this before, I was on the carpet for Variety with the film Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. And you can find that piece at variety.com. And if you can't find it at variety.com, if you just type in Carla Renata, all the articles that I've ever written for Variety will pop up. It's been a blessing to do stuff for them. I'm really excited about that, and I really enjoy it. And yeah, so there's that. And so let's get into the first thing. Let me talk a little bit about Are You There, God? It's Margaret. That's going to drop this week on April 28th. Let me make sure I got my April 28th. Yeah. No, April 21st. It already dropped. Are You There, God? It's Margaret. Already dropped. It's directed and written by Kelly Freeman. And you know what? It's based on this book that's been around for 50 years by this doll named Judy Blume. Now, I'm going to tell you, just like I told the directors of Judy Blume forever, and I'm just saying we having a Judysaince because Judy Blume is having a renaissance right now, and I'm there for all of it. But Are You There, God? It's Margaret is the title of a book by the same name that's been around for 50 years. It has been in it's had 90 million copies. It's been published in 32 different languages, and it was actually on the book ban list in the 80s because people didn't want their children reading about sexuality. It's like, how you think you got here? You think you got here by osmosis? So yeah, your mom and daddy had sex and you got here, and you had to learn how to wear a bra and learn about a period and all those things too. And for you guys that are listening that don't want to hear that, just plug up your ears. Anywho, that's what I'll say about that. But when I tell you that this book, well, not the book, but the movie deals with a young girl named Margaret who moves with her family from the city to the suburbs, and she's 11 years old, and she's trying to navigate new friends, feelings, and the beginning of what it is to be an adolescent. It's dealing from her point of view. This entire film is dealing from Margaret's point of view. So imagine watching a film dealing with adolescence from an 11, 12-year-old's point of view. Comedy ensues. It is hilarious. And when I tell you that Abby Forston, who plays Margaret, is holding it down, this girl is holding down that entire movie by herself because she's pretty much in every scene. She's finding out about, as Margaret, she's finding out stuff about, not only friendships, but boys, spin the bottle. We must increase our bust. Like, come on, who didn't do that when they were a kid? Come on, y'all. Y'all know y'all did that. And what's hilarious is one of the little girls in the movie is doing it backwards. It's like, you don't increase your bust doing it this way, baby. You got to pull it out. Hilarious. Anywho, so there's that. But I loved seeing that part. This film is super, super funny. Rachel McAdams and Abby, who are absolutely fantastic. But baby, it's Kathy Bates that steals this film. Kathy Bates steals every scene that she is in, and you will literally laugh out loud. If you have ever been an 11-year-old girl, and I suffice to say that if you're a girl, you have been 11 years old and know exactly what that feels like to go through puberty and that first time your mama took you to get a bra and you had nothing to put in the bra. Like, I know for me, the moment that I knew I was in puberty, which is so not the case now. But when I was a little girl, I remember I had an aunt that I would ask her for some change or something, and she would always reach down in her bra and pull it out. And I thought that was the coolest thing, that she could reach down into her bra and she would pull out all kinds of stuff. She'd pull out money, cigarettes, candy, gum. Like, it was like a pot of gold down in her bra. And I used to live for the moment that I would be able to do that. I would go home and try to emulate what she did, and my money would just drop straight to the floor. Needless to say, that if you have seen pictures of me, you know that is not the case any longer. But I just want to say that this film is hilarious. It's a really, really good time at the theater, and it is called Are You There, God? Is Margaret. Now, if that wasn't enough Judy Blume for us to handle, here comes a documentary telling us who Judy Blume is. It's called Judy Blume Forever, and it's directed by Davina Pardo and Leah Walcott. And it gives us that slice of life that is Judy Blume, from the moment she was a kid to the time she became a housewife, and how she literally went from being someone's housewife to being went from being someone's daughter to being someone's housewife, and what that meant for her, and how that was the beginning of the Judy Blume and all the books that we know now. And there's no pun intended or maybe it is, that the movie is called Judy Blume Forever, because Judy Blume has a really popular adult book called Forever. If you have not read it, check it out. I read it and got my entire life reading it, because I'm going to tell you the truth. Up until this documentary and this film coming out, I did not know who Judy Blume was. I had a whole conversation with my mother. I'm like, did my mother tell me about this and I missed it? Didn't know. But what I will tell you is that I had a whole conversation with the directors about it, and I'll let them tell you more about it and me tell you more about it as we get into it. So here is my interview with Miss Davina and Miss Leah talking about Judy Blume Forever. I really enjoyed this documentary, and I watched it with my mother, mostly because my mother and I am so embarrassed to say that we had never heard of Judy Blume. We didn't know who Judy Blume was. And so I asked my mother, I was like, did you like introduce me to this? And I didn't remember it. And she's like, no, I don't know who that is. I'm like, let's watch this documentary together. And my mother was like, and my mother was so incredibly impressed. So I wanted to let you guys know that you made an impact on my mother.
Oh, that's amazing.
Hard to do. That's hard to do.
Thank you. Thanks. Can you bring her in? Can we talk to her? No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
If she was presentable, I would have her on the side. But having said that, Judy's books have caused such controversy that they were banned once in the 80s, and now it's being banned again in Florida with this big ban that they have. And I just want to know what you guys think about that, because as you were shooting this during the pandemic, I'm sure you didn't think on the other side of it we'd be talking about this again.
Right. I mean, we always knew that we knew authors were still being banned when when we started a few years ago, but it hadn't reached the frenzy it had now. So we always knew we would talk to authors whose work was being banned today. But what's happening now has just reached unprecedented numbers. It's insane. And I mean, Judy's books are still being banned, but in general, the books being banned are books by Black and brown authors, stories about Black and brown children, and they're books about transgender and queer authors. So, I mean, it's coming from the same place of fear and wanting to control children that Judy was experiencing in the 80s, but it's fear about something different. And Jason Reynolds has a line in the film that we love where he says, if you want to know what's going on in this country, what fears are bubbling to the surface, look at the banned books list. So we're really seeing that play out right now.
And what do you think Judy Blume's voice means in the 21st century? We know what it meant in the 20th century when it came out, but what do you think it means in the 21st century and for the next 50 years coming up?
I mean, I think Judy Blume's voice will always be the voice of honesty. She's the voice of radical honesty. I get that in the 60s and 70s, no one had ever heard that voice before, and now we are all sharing everything all over the place all the time, but we're all doing it with like filters and curated pictures. I think she is just pure honesty. She's telling it like it is in a way that feels earnest, it feels raw, but it feels sensitive. It feels emotionally available. And I think her voice is also one of someone who says it's okay to be messy, it's okay to be complicated, it's okay to make mistakes. I have, we all have. I mean, she's saying I've made mistakes. I'm admitting I've made mistakes. Of course we all have, and that's okay. And her characters all made mistakes. They all had thoughts that were uncomfortable. And I think that acceptance and that understanding of vulnerability and mistakes, I think that's what leads to a deeper connection with each other. And I think that's the legacy that her work will have.
Absolutely. What do you think women can do now to make sure that our voices and our artistic freedom are intact? Judy kind of started the rally call, but how are we going to finish it?
I think that all women need to stand up and fight against what's happening in this country with book banning. Because even if they're not necessarily going after books about, female sexuality and periods in the way that they were in the 80s, what's happening with books about race and books about trans and queer people should be as important to women as that was. And it affects all of us. It affects everybody. It's so important for everybody to have access to the books that they need, whether it's a Judy Blume book or a book by Jason Reynolds or Alex Gino. So I hope we can all, even if it's not happening in our own communities, I hope we can all look up the National Coalition Against Censorship, look up PEN America, go to the American Library Association. They all have so much information about things you can do to get involved.
Thank you so much, ladies. You are some deep dolls, and thank you thank you for forever putting Judy Blume on film so that generations way beyond our time will be able to discover her and encourage others to discover her and be entertained by her and educated as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Say hi to your mom for us.
I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Now, if y'all have been watching my podcast for a while, you know that my mother is the reason I love film, any kind of film, particularly classic film. But when they asked to speak to my mother, honey, if my mother had been halfway presentable, she would have come in here and would have taken over the interview, and the people that are running the interviews digitally would have been mad. It would have been a 15-minute long conversation. But I just wanted to thank Leah and Davina once again for giving me some time to talk about Judy Blume Forever, which is streaming right now. Is out right now. Yay. So those two different Judy Blume projects, Judy Blume Forever and Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I'm telling you, she's having a Judysaince. I'm just saying. All right. So the next film that I want to tell you guys about is this film called Somewhere in Queens. It's directed and starring Ray Romano, along with his co-star Laurie Metcalf. And it's dealing with this guy he's kind of on the verge of possibly having this huge basketball scholarship journey when he ends up with a breakup. He breaks up with a girl. And if you've ever been a teen in high school and broken up with anybody, it feels like it is the end of the world. Like your life is going to come crashing to an end and all this stuff is happening in which, my light's about to fall. Sorry. Let me move this over here. Sorry. I was just like, what's happening? I saw it about to pop up and it was about to be a situation. I promise you. Anyway, your life comes crashing down around you and you're just like, oh Lord, what am I going to do? This person doesn't like me anymore. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo, boo-hoo. But then what happens is you have parents that love you enough that try to derail that breakup so that they can get what they want for you. Not necessarily what you want for yourself, but what they want for you. So Ray Romano takes place in Queens around this big Italian family. And if any of you are Italian or know Italians, you know Italians do things big. They don't back down from anything, but they are some of the most loving, passionate people you will ever meet in your entire life. And this family is Somewhere in Queens is no different. So the film is a little slow in some spots. But I like it because I like the cast. And Ray Romano and Laurie Metcalf portrayed this couple that's not without their challenges. They have the challenge of having this teenage boy who's a little special, and they've got their own stuff that they're dealing with within their marriage. And it's just nice to see a story that focuses on family and not shenanigans. You know what I mean? But I'll let them tell you a little bit more about it. So here's Jacob Ward and Sadie Stanley talking about Somewhere in Queens. Hi, you guys.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm good. How's it going with you?
Good.
Fantastic.
Oh, okay.
Fantastic.
Not trying to one up you, just
Yeah, it feels like
You
it.
said fantastic. I'm like, I'm there for the fantastic situation. Okay. So I enjoyed you all in this film because what you did was extremely understated. And I know from being an actor myself that that's really hard to do, to keep a cap on the bottle, so to speak. But so I wanted to commend you on your performances in that manner. And then I just needed to know, I mean, Jacob, your parents in this movie, they got shenanigans. They've got shenanigans. Oh my goodness. Having said that, have either one of you had a moment where, what was the most embarrassing thing your parents ever did to you?
oh, too many to count. I mean, my parents have always been amazingly supportive, and maybe that's the place where it's been embarrassing sometimes because I think they're blindly supportive of me. You know, they sometimes don't recognize if I'm not that good at something. So,
Hilarious.
I don't know.
No, same here. I feel like my grandma embarrasses me the most because she's so proud of me, obviously, and I adore her. She just goes around telling everyone that I'm an actress, that I'm a movie star. She tells the waiters at a restaurant. She tells the store grocery clerk. She tells anybody and everybody that she can that I'm a movie star actress, and I very much appreciate it, but it can get a little embarrassing sometimes.
I overstand. My mom does that to me sometimes too. And I'm like, they're like, you're famous. I'm like, I'm kind of not. So being directed by Ray Romano, he's such a genius when it comes to acting and being funny. And this is his directorial debut. And it's a little more on the serious side, you know? So I just want to get your thoughts about being directed by him and what kind of lessons that you learned as working with him on the director side. Because, you know, people that are directors who've been actors, they have a shorthand with us that most people would not, who have not been on the other side. You know what I'm saying?
Right, absolutely. I definitely think we both felt that him having so much experience as an actor really influenced his style of directing, which is amazing. I'm sure you can imagine as an actor yourself, like the way that he gives notes just makes sense to your brain. And he just cares so much in the same way that you do about your character. So it feels like you're in it together. I really, really appreciated that about his directing style, for sure.
Yeah. Jacob?
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. I think like his attentiveness is really unique. I think, you know, not always are directors as attentive to every little thing that the actor is doing, but he really had that attention towards us and that empathy for us when he would give us notes. And yeah, I mean, he's amazing to work with.
I love that. I love that you guys felt very supported by him, because that's important, especially with the types of characters you had in this film, because this film is dealing with people who, you know, when you have a situation like what Styx has, when someone doesn't love you back, it feels like your whole world is crumbling around you and that you're the only person that's ever experienced that in life, right? So have you guys ever felt like that at some point where you've had a problem or something happen that felt so insurmountable that you're like, nobody else could possibly be going through this but me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody has moments like that in their life where they're like experiencing a great pain and they can't imagine that it'll ever go away or that it'll ever get better or that anybody can understand them. And I think that's what's so beautiful about art and about movies and about books and about, you know, whatever form of art it is that you love. Like, it makes you feel like you're not alone, and it makes you realize, oh my gosh, this person has already been through this before me, and this person too, and this person too, and oh my gosh, I can see myself. I think that's what art is for. It's important.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Ethan Hawke has a little interview where he talks about kind of the power of art, and it's pretty much exactly what Sadie just said. So yeah.
Okay, I need to hear more about this interview, though. You can't be like Ethan.
No, it's literally
about art, and not tell me what it is.
It's just an interview he did. I don't even know where it was from, but he was just talking about how like art is sustenance for people that, you know, they might not know how much they need it as they're walking around their daily lives, and then the second something hits, the second something, you know, tragic happens in their life, or even something amazing, they want to feel confirmed, and they look to art to do that.
I love that. You a deep little person, Jacob. You and Sadie, y'all are some deep dolls, but I love it because it makes an interview like this have a lot more substance. And I love that. And I love you, and I love your roles, and I'm looking forward to seeing much more from you in the future.
Thank you
very
so much. I
much.
appreciate it.
You're welcome. Bye. All right, so that's Somewhere in Queens, and it has been released and is in theaters right now. So let's check in with Brandon, shall we? Because, you know, he's always here for me, so I always got to be here for him. He is saying that he has 2 weeks left of his semester of his animation school, and then in the summer or fall, he'll be in semester 3. And also, CinemaCon next week. He can't wait for the animation announcements for each studio. Me either. And he's been watching 2 animated Disney shows, Moon Girl and I think this Kif. Correct me if that's wrong, Brandon. And you also heard that they are doing a Transformers animated Cybertron prequel movie on the vein of Spider-Verse next year for Paramount. And you also said, I really hope at the Sony presentation they show a full screening of Across Spider-Verse and hear the first reactions. You know, they're not going to show a full screening at CinemaCon. They usually just show like a little snippet, and when they do show something of that nature, they do a special edit of different moments of the film, so it's not in sequence at CinemaCon. So there's that. I'm supposed to go to CinemaCon this week. I'm not quite sure that's going to happen. I'm still trying to work some things out, but hopefully I will make that happen because there's some really cool things happening that I'll tell you guys about as we go on throughout the week. All right. Peter Pan and Wendy is coming out, and it is going to be on Disney Plus on April 28th. And I just got to tell you, I think it was one of the first films my mom took me to see was Peter Pan, and I have a special affection for Peter Pan and Wendy. You know, when well, I won't ruin it for people that have never seen Peter Pan, but there's something very endearing about that particular Disney story that always has me up in my feelings and have me just choked up right on the verge of crying. But when they decided to focus the story on Peter Pan and Wendy, just their story for this Disney Plus live action version, they added a very special cast member, Yara Shahidi, who you guys know her from Blackish and Grownish, and she graduated from Harvard not too long ago. But she is playing Tinkerbell, and they've never had a woman of color play Tinkerbell, and I was really excited about that, and so was she. So I had a little chatty chat with Miss Yara about it, and I'm gonna let y'all in on that conversation right now. Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? I like your setup.
Thank you so much. I love your dress.
Thank you.
It's so gorgeous.
Thank you.
So, Yara, being a champion of inclusivity and media programming and an advocate for equity in that regard, how important has it been for you to be part of this diverse world of Peter Pan as the first Tinkerbell that was of color?
It's been really exciting, and like you said, it's been extremely important because I think fairy tales hold such a dear space in my heart as some of the first stories we're all introduced to. And so to be a part of this movie that I think expands our idea of what inclusivity could be so effortlessly, including and wrapping it into the story and creating such a compelling movie, I think gives me hope and is also kind of a blueprint for what these not only just remakes can look like, but just what we imagine fairy tales to look like.
And how did it feel the very first time you put on that Tinkerbell costume and then getting to do mocap? Because I don't think you've ever done that before, right?
I haven't. It was my first time. But funny enough, the next thing I hopped to, I was playing a hologram. So I got very familiar with mocap. But it was so magical, for lack of a better word, because I think the mocap process is oftentimes a little less glamorous than people think. And I had a great time filming, but there was something about being in full costume the handful of times where I was able to have the hair, the makeup, the dress, where I really felt the magic of being Tinkerbell. I think that's when it would really hit me, just the gravity of those moments, because otherwise I was just kind of working away and enjoying the work, but I think I almost felt like I had a wave of emotion once material and posters and trailers started coming out because, you know, I kind of disconnected the process from what we were doing, which was like, oh, we're creating this new type of fairy tale.
I love that. And speaking of new type of fairy tale, Tinkerbell is a role that is done with very few words, kind
Yeah.
kind of almost like a silent movie, right? So how was it for you to be able to tap in as an actress to express all of that without having to actually, I mean, I could see your mouth moving, and I know that probably when you taped it, you could hear yourself talking and everybody taping you could hear you, but then they dub the other sounds over it so that the audience would have the idea that Tinkerbell doesn't speak until we actually hear you speak.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're taking the words right out of my mouth just because we did take a lot of inspiration from silent movies and from forms of media where people had to be very expressive as their form of communicating. And so that was a major inspiration in order to figure out how we fine-tune Tinkerbell's expressions, but also in terms of when you hear her kind of chime. I was doing a very messy mix of Spanish and Farsi and Old English because I was in Old English class at the time, and you know, nothing that could easily be translated, but the goal was to have words so that I could put some sort of intention behind it. But I think what helped about just kind of using this total collage of languages was that it added to that feeling of being misunderstood. So even on set, it wasn't as though people absolutely understood me. So it was finding that, walking that balancing act of her saying words and her knowing exactly what she's saying, but knowing that it's not hitting the people's ears the same way. And that meant that there was also a baseline frustration that we played with. And we wanted her to be playful and not be super serious. But there is that element of her not being heard and her being overlooked for a portion of the film that I think plays into how she reacts to the world around her. I definitely think I've become a more expressive person since playing Tinkerbell. I thought I had a good poker face. Apparently, I don't. I'd like to think I don't anymore and that I used to, but I think playing Tinkerbell ignited face muscles I'd never used before. And so now when I think that I'm giving neutral, I'm out there like,
That is pure comedy. Yara, I love that you were speaking Farsi. That gave me life. But thank you so much, so much for giving me your time this morning and making sure that Tinkerbell is more than a sidekick. I appreciate it.
thank you for your questions. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, my sister. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So when I was in Avenue Q, we had this saying that said, sidekicks are people too. And I meant to say that when I was talking to Yara, but yeah. But you guys, I really liked Peter Pan and Wendy. I don't know if it's going to be everybody's cup of tea, but it was my cup of tea. And I wholeheartedly enjoyed it. And so you want to catch it when it hits Disney Plus on April 28th. Yay! All right. Last and definitely not least, I spoke to George Foreman a long time ago when I did, he was on a reality show with William Shatner and, I can't remember Terry's last name, the football player, but they were all on this reality show and it was called Better Late Than Never. It was on NBC and they would go off to these places and do things. Just crazy stuff. Henry Winkler was in that cast too. And I remember at the junket, Henry Winkler showed me a picture of them going to the hills in Switzerland where Judy Julie Andrews sang "The Hills Are Alive," the beginning of Sound of Music, where that camera comes down and she's swirling around. The hills are alive. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I remember talking to George Foreman that day, and he was so sweet and so kind. So I was really excited to speak to him again. Now, I know he don't remember meeting me that day, because how many people does he meet in his lifetime? And I look drastically different now than I did that particular day. But what I will say is there's a movie coming out called Big George Foreman. They've never put George Foreman's life on the big screen. There have been books about him. There's been documentaries about him. There's been all kinds of things about him, but there's never been a feature-length film. And this one is directed by George Tillman Jr. So I sat down with George Tillman Jr. and I talked to him about his process of directing this film and what about it made him want to direct it. So take a look and a listen to this interview with director of Big George Foreman, George Tillman Jr. That's a lot to say. Two Georges. Woo! Hey, George.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Great. It's been a minute since I've seen you, and I know your wife really well.
Oh, great.
I love her. Anywho.
She right here.
Is she? Hey, Marsha. Hey. She's like, who's that? Anywho. I wanted to talk to you about, most of your films are usually from an African-American familial point of view, but I've never seen you delve into the world of sports, not like this. What attracted you to jumping into the story behind George Foreman?
I'm going to just tell you from an honest standpoint, it's just the journey of the character. Like, George tells the story of him as a young boy and everybody writing him off and said he wouldn't be able to be anything in his life. I was able to identify that as a young African-American kid in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, trying to want to direct. I wanted to be a director. Most of my friends tell me no directors come out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Nobody come out of Milwaukee to do anything. And I'm like, how can anybody write George off like they was writing me off? So taking that story, him winning the Olympics and winning the fight later on at 46, sometimes you got to look for approval within yourself instead of from other people. And that got me want to tell this story more than anything.
We all have things that we believe in, right? And things other than ourselves as well. So how does that change you, knowing what you know going into the story? How does that particular statement change you now and your perspective on the other side?
Yes. Well, more than anything, when I look back, especially after I shot the movie, and I knew it kind of going in, but you feel it a little bit more. Sometimes your losses is your wins. And George losing to Ali, at the time for him, he thought it was the worst thing ever, but it became a change in his life. So I look back at certain things that may have happened and, was trying to get this movie going and the pandemic and the hurricane. We couldn't get this thing going for nothing, and we finally got it. It's sometimes you just got to endure, and then you realize that a win is going to come out of that. So that's something that I was able to take away myself after making the movie.
That's beautiful. I want to talk to you a little bit about your fight choreographer, Daryl Foster. How did you find him?
Well, I really like what they did in Ali in the movie. I just felt like I remember watching Will Smith for years, and I just felt like in that film he really did the body. He got the body exactly right. So I reached out to him because I wanted a reality style. I didn't want to go with the fights where you feel like they're missing each other and it feels like stunts. And you can see the punches go like, so I just really wanted to go real, and we got real fighters. We did the choreography to a T. We worked very hard, and it was a lot of long hours, a lot of sleepless nights. But at the day, one thing that we had was the 70s style boxers and the 70s style fighting, and that's something that I wanted to get across.
One last thing, talk to me about the fight sequences and how you shot them. Because I know it's hard to have a camera in a ring. It's a very confined, small space, a lot smaller than people think.
Yeah, well, the key is the most important thing. Once you get the choreography together, they working while I'm putting my plans together from a visual style, storyboards. And then once we're ready, let's get in the ring for the first time and do a rehearsal. So we rehearsed the Joe Frazier fight and the Ali fight with a camera. And then I was like, I can't get around here because they here. We can't. And then we was trying to work it out, and we work it out and got a system down. And once that system happened, it all about staying in George's subjective point of view. I don't know if you noticed that I never go in Ali corner, never go in Frazier. I stay with George all the way through, and to get that experience of what it's like to be in the ring. And that's what's our style and our approach for the film.
I love that you shot it from his point of view. That's why I asked that question.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much, George. Tell the missus I said hello. Give her a
Sure.
big hug for me.
All right.
And I'll see you on the next one.
All right. Thank you. See you later.
So yay! I really enjoyed this film, you guys. I enjoyed it because it's dealing with George Foreman. It's also dealing with a man who thought that life had given up on him. You know, so many times when you are in some form of entertainment, whether it be sports or whether it be, Broadway or film or television, at some point you give up on yourself. You think nobody's going to believe in me, nobody has my back. And it only takes one person to believe in you, just one person to believe in you, to help you make the difference that you always knew you could make. And that person for George Foreman was Doc Brodus, who's played by Forrest Whitaker in the film. I was supposed to interview Forrest that day, but due to some time issues on my end, I wasn't able to make that happen. And I'm so sad because I really love talking to him. But I did get to talk to Chris Davis, who plays George Foreman in the film. And I did get to speak to George Foreman himself about their trajectory on this film. And when we come back, I'll talk a little bit about the movie. Okay? All right. Take a look and a listen. Hi, Mr. George. How you
Hi,
doing?
Carla. It's so nice to see a young girl for a change. Those guys.
I love you. You always have the best sense of humor. You know, I interviewed you back in 2018 when you were doing Better Late Than Never.
Isn't that beautiful?
Loved you.
Yeah, I am still.
I'm glad you're still here for me to talk to you again. I really do. You are blessed, blessed, blessed. We all have things that we believe in other than ourselves, right? How does that statement change you and your perspective on the other side of your life now post-boxing?
You know, I started boxing as a little boy, really. I started off, I didn't even have hope. That word didn't even exist. Hope and the word success, potential. Can you imagine going through life with those words not being in existence? And I achieved so much in boxing, knocked down, but given a second chance to live. Forget about championship of the world, but I had a second chance to live after experiencing death itself. And now to go on and tell that story, of which a lot of it I was ashamed of. I didn't want to reveal my secrets of my life. They pulled it out of me in a movie, and I saw it in art. That was an ever-changing experience to watch my life in a movie. Chris Davis, a great job.
Honestly, doing his story is what will go with me for the rest of my life. You know, he faced so much adversity, and we all do, don't get me wrong, but there was something unique about telling his story of overcoming adversity while experiencing so much adversity myself at the same time. And I was being stretched and pulled and pushed to a degree that I never thought I could reach. I mean, it seemed impossible, no joke. It seemed impossible. But I was still standing, and I would finish another day. I'd finish another day, and I was certain that at the end of filming, I was going to be like, yes, I'm done. I don't never want to see you people like that. But then we finished filming, and I was like, wait a minute. I think I can go 2 more weeks. Because we done been through so much. We done overcame so much. So now I know what I can do, how far I can go. And if I think that I only have a limit, I know I can go further. And that's because I did this film.
In our first interview, Confrontation, he even put on an acting job there. And I said, this guy wanted to act that much? That's George Foreman. He really put on a good show. I looked him in the eye once, and he tried to look away. I said, no, look me in the eye. And I gave him that experience of what the other guys I got into the ring with were frightened. But he looked me in the eye and said, don't look away until you see me. He did. And let me tell you, he brought George Foreman alive again.
I love that you were like, look me in the eye, and that was it for you. If you can look me in my eye, then you the dude to play me. I love that so much.
That's the way it happened with him.
I love that. What would you say has been the biggest, most inspiring piece of advice you've received throughout your life? Because you've lived a long and beautiful life, and you had so many different chapters and reincarnations along the way.
I try to hide from success. Doc Brodus, Forrest Whitaker played Doc Brodus in the movie, he just would not give up on me. So many times I thought, boy, I've disappointed him once, disappointed him twice. He's done with me. He found me when I tried to hide back in Houston, Texas, brought me back to California, took his hard-earned money to buy a plane ticket, and I didn't have anything in me special. He believed in me. This movie is about never giving up on someone you love. Could be a daughter, could be a son, a relative. Don't give up on them. There's something called potential all of us have.
Well, you have the potential for inspiring. You really do. You inspire me every time I speak to you because you speak from the heart and you speak from a place of wealth spiritually. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
I appreciate that. And I really do appreciate you. It is all, I'm about to cry. Oh, get together. I really enjoy speaking to you. And I'm so grateful that I still have another opportunity to talk with you yet again. Thank you so, so very much for giving me your time. I really do appreciate it.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Bye, Mr. George.
Bye-bye.
I love how I call him Mr. George, like he one of my uncles or something. I love George Foreman. I really do. And I did get emotional because if you think about it, he's one of the few legends that's still with us, and he looks great. He's got a great spirit. His spirituality is very well intact, and it was really quite the honor to speak with him once again. I meant that. So let me just thank my guest once again. Let me thank Jacob Ward and Jacob Ward and Sadie Stanley, somewhere in Queens, Chris Davis, Mr. George Foreman, George Tillman Jr., all who are George Tillman Jr., who has directed, and Chris Davies, who stars in Big George Foreman, which is coming to you on April 28th. I spoke with the directors of Judy Blume Forever and Yara Shahidi from Peter Pan and Wendy, which is going to drop this week as well. Next week, I'm going to try to make it to CinemaCon. I'm going to put that out into the atmosphere, and where two people that I love and adore are being honored. Zendaya is being honored with the Star of the Year award, and Melissa McCarthy, who you guys are going to see very soon in Disney's live action version of The Little Mermaid with Miss Halle Bailey, not Berry, Bailey. She is being honored with the Cinema Verite Award, because Melissa McCarthy is out here slaying the game, and I don't care who else is sleeping on her, but I know the Curvy Critic ain't sleeping on her. That's what I know. And the Little Richard documentary is out. I told you guys about that Little Richard documentary when it was at Sundance, and now it is out in theaters for you to enjoy. You will love it. And Star Wars Episode 6 is going to be released back into theaters. That's the one with Billy D. Williams. So you know I'm about to get with that one real quick, right? And next week, I'll have a sneak peek for you with one of my favorite people in the whole world, Miss Lila Gerstein, who is the writer and creator of a show called Saint X, which is going to be on Hulu. It's based off of a novel by the same name. And Lila and I know each other because she was my showrunner and executive producer on a show that I recurred on called Heart of Dixie back in the day for the CW. I'm also going to come back and talk about CinemaCon. I'm going to talk about Ghosted, and hopefully I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. We're working on getting an interview solidified with Sonia Jean, and Jasmine Matthews, who are both in Big George Foreman. And I got a couple of other surprises up my sleeve. So until the next time, give me a big thumbs up to let me know you were here. Click that bell for notifications if you are on the YouTube. If you're watching this via Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting me. Thank you, Brandon, for always popping in. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Love, peace, and hair grease. And I'll see you on the flip side. Deuces.